this is harmful, this is damaging my health, I had better stop. But it's going to take him time to break the habit. Until the habit is broken, he's going to continue doing it. But every puff he takes, now he knows this is wrong, does he not? He knows this is wrong, this is damaging to my health. So he makes a firm endeavor, I'm going to stop this, hopefully this is my last one, I'm not going to do it again, hopefully. He makes a promise to himself. And also, before he discovered that smoking was bad for him, let's say a young child comes to him and he asks, what are you doing? I'm smoking, would you like to try one? He might have said, because he doesn't realize that smoking is bad. He didn't, at least not until he went to the doctor. So he praised it. He said, this is good. This is what you have to do. If you want to be somebody in society, you have to smoke. So he spread the word, smoke as much as you possibly can. Go and buy cigarettes, you can find them everywhere. He used to promote it. But now he has come across this understanding that no, it's harmful, it's damaging. Chances are he's not going to promote it anymore. He's not going to ask somebody to do it. In fact, if someone comes up to him and says, what are you doing? Can I have one as well? He's probably going to say, don't start the habit. I'm struggling to give it up myself. It's a bad habit. It's not going to be any good for anybody. I'm trying to break the habit, so you had better not start it. That is what a Sotapanna is like. A smoker who's gone to the hospital, got himself checked up, and now knows he's got tar in his lungs. Now he's trying to break the habit. Every puff he takes, he knows this is wrong, but he still engages in that. Until one day he is completely able to stop taking cigarettes. That's the day he has become an Arahat. Does that example make sense? Some people, they go to the doctor, get themselves examined, and they decide, oh my goodness, I'm not going to do this ever again. Overnight, they can break the habit. That takes a lot of willpower, a lot of courage, a lot of guts. Right? Some people are like that. They can decide overnight, no, I'm not going to do it ever again. Stop. But others, it's not so easy. For others, they have to go through a process, a healing process. It'll take time. And over that time, they might say, right, next month, I'm going to stick myself to 1 a day and no more. And the following month, they might say, okay, 1 every 2 days. The following month, they say 1 every week. So this is how they learn to wean themselves off smoking. It's going to take them time. And it is not the same on the path in the Dhamma. For some people, all you have to say is anicca dukkha anatta. All raga, dvesha, moha has been eradicated in the flick of a finger. That's all it takes. Instantaneous arahat. But they still went through sotapanna, sakurdagami, anagami, and arahat. There are no instant arahats in that, in that sense. No one goes from being a prutakjana to arahat. You have to go through the process of sotapanna, sakurdagami, anagami, arahat. But that happens immediately. In the flash of a second it can happen, because all you need is one chitta. In the time it takes me to flick my fingers, how many chittas? Billions. So in the time it takes me to do this, you can go from being a prutakjana to sotapanna, sakurdagami, anagami, arahat. There are people like that. If you read the times in the Buddhist time, young people who came to ordain, as their head was being shaven, kesha, loma, naka, danta, tacho. Kesha, sotapanna. Loma, sakurdagami. Danta, anagami. Tacho, arahat. Provided you are receiving that instruction from someone who is also a margaphalalabhi, a nobleman, a noble person, there is that as well, the paramita that you have been fulfilling throughout samsara. So that ripens at that point in time. There are lots of people like that. The Buddha gives one sermon and there are sotapanna. Others, like, the first sermon the Buddha delivered, the wheel turning sermon, Dhammsak Payatum Sutra Deshana, right? Kondanya went from being a prutakjana to sotapanna, but none of the others went through any transformation because their paramitas had not been fulfilled yet. They had further to go in the path. Because still you need the perfections. Virtue, charity, right? Patience. All of these are virtues, all of these are perfections that one has to fulfill. Throughout samsara, what are you doing now? Are you not fulfilling perfections? So listen, don't you think that it's a good thing when people come and shout at you? Absolutely. One, it's a test, madam. And two, do you think we would have had a Buddha if not for Devadatta? Would we have had the Buddha if not for Devadatta? Throughout every encounter they had in samsara, what did Devadatta do? Try to do all sorts of harm to the Buddha, to the Bodhisattva, right? He acted with a lot of malevolence, always causing him harm and giving him trouble, trying to test his patience. But every time, what did the Bodhisattva do? He tolerated that. He wanted to be the better person because he wanted to become a Buddha. So had those encounters not come into his life, how would he have fulfilled the perfections? There would not have been the opportunity for him to do it. It's like, imagine if you have to work through 100 sums. Oh, okay, flight school. How does one become a pilot? To get their license, you have to go through X number of flying hours. But flying until you have gotten yourself a license can be quite dangerous. It can be quite stressful. Yeah, as you're getting into a jet, now you're flying it, you haven't got a lot of experience, it can be quite stressful. But you have to go through that process to eventually get yourself your license because you need to go through so many flight hours. So, shouldn't this person be grateful when they are expected to go and have some time in a jet? Because now they are getting the opportunity to earn themselves the flight hours so that eventually they can get themselves the license. Likewise, the Bodhisattva, to become the Buddha, he will have had to go through all those atrocities that Devadatta brought to the Buddha. Had he not done that, he would have not become the Buddha. So apply that into your lives then. If you want to become an Arahant, who here doesn't want to become an Arahant? Okay, thankfully everybody wants to. If you want to become an Arahant, then you have to fulfill the perfections. You have to fulfill patience. How does one fulfill patience? What must happen for someone to practice patience? You should have Devadattas in your life. So people should come and shout at you. They should come and take away things that belong to you. Like what? Including, but not only, your money, your property. What about your husbands? Yes. What about your children? Of course. What was the Bodhisattva in his last birth? Before he became Siddhartha? Vesantara. What did he give away? Children and his wife. So he had to have the Devadatta in that life come and ask for his children and wife, didn't he? Had he not come and asked for that, who would he have given them away to? So when someone comes and says, I really like the look of your husband, can I have him? If you really, really, really want to become an Arahant, if you are serious about Nibbana, you wouldn't think twice before going, of course. Would you like me to dress him up for you? That's if you are really serious about Nibbana. We do it in some form. This is why when we came into robes, we let go of a lot of things. Husbands and wives and property and money and all sorts of things we let go of. Because we need to practice letting go. Otherwise, how can you let go of these Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana? These are very subtle things. If you can't let go of the big things, how can you let go of the little things? The state of Sotapana is irreversible. You can't go back to becoming a Pruthakjana, even if you wanted to. I can't think why you'd want to, but you wouldn't. You can't even if you wanted to. It's irreversible because it is a state of understanding. It's a level of understanding. Okay, let me put that into a real life example for you. How much is 2 plus 2? Okay, now I want you all to forget that. Now I want you all to not know that 2 and 2 equals 4. Go on. Can you? No. You can't do that because you just know it. It's part of your system now. Now 2 plus 2 equals 4, you might forget in your next birth. You'll have to learn it again. But this is a level of understanding of the mind, because the mind, the amount of ignorance and attachment is what is fading as you go through your levels of understanding. It's ignorance and attachment. Remember we drew the curve and underline. I drew the line of ignorance and attachment. It's that line that is fading away. It's that you're chipping away. This is the foundation on which your mind is running constantly. So you're chipping away at ignorance and attachment. 25%, 50%, 75%, and eventually 100%. At the point of zero ignorance, there's zero attachment. Can you listen to the Dhamma to rid yourself of attachment? You're saying that because that's how I asked the question. Then what can you listen to the Dhamma for? You can only get rid of ignorance, because attachment is the result of ignorance. Remember, there is no treating the result in Buddhist doctrine. It's treating the cause. Treat the cause, the result will look after itself. You don't have to worry about the cause. The result. Treat the cause. So the cause of attachment is ignorance. Treat ignorance, and the cause, which is attachment, will look after itself. This is why this Paticcasamuppada starts at avidya pacca sankhara. Sankhara pacca vijnana nama rupa salayatana passa vedana tanha. Right? It comes all the way down. Much further down the line, you get tanha. Before that, ignorance is right at the beginning. So fix ignorance. One might say, I don't want to tackle ignorance. I just want to tackle attachment. What is the cause of attachment? Yes, because if you look all the way back, the start of the line is at ignorance. So you can't not deal with ignorance. You have to deal with ignorance. If you want a tree, if you want to kill a tree, you have to uproot it from the roots. Right? That's what uprooting is. You have to pull it out at the roots. If you cut off some branches, those branches are just going to grow back again. But to kill the tree once and for all, you have to pull it at the roots. Remove it at the roots, that tree is never going to grow back again. So this is why you have to treat it at ignorance. Treat ignorance, and the rest will look after itself. So what is ignorance again? Beautiful flower. Where's ignorance? You sure? Yes. Is it? The composition of ignorance, or the composition of flower, or the composition of beautiful? Which one is ignorance? They're both ignorance. Aren't they both ignorance? You don't know the composition of a flower. Isn't that ignorance? Who can you go to get help for this? Okay. You can go to a scientist who might do some chemical analysis, and he'll come back and say, this has got so much carbon, so many hydrogen atoms, so many oxygen atoms, so many sulfur, and so on and so forth. So that's one type of ignorance. But removing that ignorance is not going to get us to Nibbana. Remember, what we are attached to is the flower, but why we are attached to is what we need to fix. Because it's beautiful. That's the why. Fix the why, the what will look after itself. This is why I say, the times in your life where you need to be mindful and do something about how you're feeling is not when you're feeling sad, not when you're feeling disappointed, not when you're feeling stressed. Because, this is what doctors are there to treat. Stress, anxiety, frustration, right? You go to a psychiatrist, they'll help you with all these problems. But what does the Buddha help you to fix? Pleasure. When was the last time you went to a psychiatrist and said, I'm seeing this girl, she's so beautiful, help me? You would have said, don't come to me. Go to a Magul Kapua. What do you call them in English? Matchmaker, thank you. Go to a matchmaker. But there's no point going to the Buddha and saying, oh Buddha, I'm stressed. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. He'll treat, but that's not what he's going to treat. These are symptoms. Anger is a symptom. Frustration, anxiety, and stress, they're all symptoms. This is not the disease. The disease is pleasure. Attachment, because of pleasure. It's because you see pleasure, you attach yourself to something that is eventually going to bring you stress. You attach to your child. My child. Where's the ignorance? My. But you are attaching to your child because of my. You didn't attach to next door child because not my. You attach to child because of my. The child's going to bring you stress, sure enough. But that stress you're going to have to go through and suffer because of my, not because of child. Because next door child is also bringing stress, but not to you. To whoever calls him or her my child. Yes. It's the adjective there that's the problem. Pleasurable, yummy, tasty, gorgeous, fabulous. All these, they're all synonymous with pleasure. That's the ignorance we ought to fix. So this is why I say, whenever, in society as you live, go you work or school or wherever, what you need to be watching out for are the times when you sense pleasure, not the times when you sense pain. Remember I talked to you some time ago, the dependent origination process, the first half talks about the problem. The second half talks about the symptoms of the problem. Avidya Pachya all the way up to Jati, that is the problem you ought to fix. But where do most people spend their time fixing? Jati Pachya, Jara, Marana, Shoka, Parideva, Dukkha, Dhomanasa. This is where people spend most of the time fixing. Why does one go to the doctor? To fix avidya pachya sankara? No. I'm growing old, help me. My face has started to wrinkle, help me. Can you put me through some detox? Help me. I need liposuction, help me. This is what people go to the doctor for. Treating what? Symptoms, not the disease. Because that doctor does not know what the disease is to begin with. This is why you need the greatest doctor that has ever come into this world to show us where the problem is. Wherever there is jati, you can't stop jara, marana, shoka, parideva coming your way. That just comes. So if you don't like the effect, then treat the cause. Treat the cause and the effect will look after itself. Is that clear to everybody? This is the fundamental bit that you need to understand. If you've understood this, you've got the doctrine. And remember, even attachment is causal. In other words, it's cause and effect. Because if attachment was a fixed entity, then we would not be able to do anything about it. Remember, the second noble truth is the cause of suffering. Dukkha samudaya arya satya. Or take suffering for that matter. Suffering is causal. Suffering is the effect. You got to treat the cause. Then you will treat the result of suffering. The result that is suffering. Dukkha samudaya. Meaning, it is based in causes. And then the third noble truth is Dukkha nirodha arya satya. Nirodha is what? Find out the cause, treat the cause, and then the result will look after itself. Not atha. Samudaya, nirodha. Udavima is arising. In the word itself, there's the meaning that this is the result of causes. This is conditional. That's what udavima is. Ativima, nativima, and udavima, vayavima are entirely different. They are worlds apart. Are you following what I'm saying here? It's an important point. Samudaya and Nirodha. The cause for suffering, the Buddha talks about. The cause. Cessation of the cause for suffering, not cessation of suffering. That is what everybody tries to do. Cessation of suffering. If you take a paracetamol, that is cessation of suffering. But cessation of the cause for suffering can only be found in the Buddhist doctrine. You've got to find the cause. What is the root cause for this suffering? Then treat it. Once you treat the cause, then that effect is never going to come back again. Because now you're uprooting it. Does that make sense? So, as you live lay lives and whatever it is you engage in, always be mindful of the times you sense pleasure. These are your traps. These are the things that are going to ensnare you into samsara. It's not suffering. No one here likes suffering. Do you like suffering? No. But don't you like pleasure? Yes. That's what got you into trouble. Liking pleasure. That's the why, because of which you attach to the what? Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha and Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. This is the what. The why is pleasure. If you don't fix the composition of pleasure, if you don't contemplate the composition of pleasure, what is pleasure? How does pleasure come into this world? How is it that we sense pleasure? This is why often we talk about how does one sense pleasure? It is relief from vexation. Once you realize that, then you realize that pleasure is not something that is worth experiencing. It's not worth having. Would you like to feel pleasure if that pleasure is brought to you by hitting you with a stick and then patting you there? That kind of pleasure, would you like that? You have to be hit first. Then you have to be patted. Patting without the hitting? That's not pleasurable. That's why we said, no pain, no gain. For there to be gain, there has to be pain beforehand. You like the gain, yes, but you don't realize that there's the pain beforehand. Without the pain, there's not going to be a gain. People in worldly language, the people use it in a completely different sense. But the Buddha said the same thing, no pain, no gain. What he meant by that is, for you to experience ashvada, for you to experience pleasure, there has to be pelim or vexation beforehand. It's relief from vexation that brings you pleasure and nothing else. So contemplate on that. So if you're mindful, if you're at battle, this is the war that we're all doing. And I'm doing it 24 hours a day. How much time do you have to put to battle? Because this is the battle that we're all going to have to either win or lose. Throughout samsara, we've always lost this battle. If you realize, with every chitta that arises, you're only ending with suffering. Once you begin to realize this, I don't think there's anything else that can take priority in your life than trying to fix that problem. If you really and truly understand that. The reason, and you should forgive me for saying this, the reason that there are other things that take priority in your life right now is because you have not yet fully understood the true nature of suffering. You have not yet fully understood it. Once you have truly understood how much you have embraced suffering, life in the apaya is better than this. Life in the four great hells is better than this. Because there, it's physical pain. Here, no matter what you're doing, doesn't matter how much money you have. Remember we talked about the mother losing her child? When the child is still holding on to her hand, she's going, where's my child? So if you're not a regular listener, you'll be going, what is he talking about? So go back and listen to the previous sermons. The mother's holding on to the child's hand, but that mind, the thought that arose, that chitta has passed away. Now the mother can't sense that the child is holding on to her hand. So the mother's going, where's my child? This is happening at 1 billion times a second. It's going through life and death at 1 billion times a second. Life in the hells is not that bad. Life in hell is not that bad. This is at 1 billion times a second. Your mind is going through this. Whether you are in the human world, the Deva world, the Brahma world. Regardless of how much you have, what you have. Not relevant. Because you can't fix that problem. You can't stop your mind from passing away. Whatever has arisen, when the causes cease to exist, it will pass away. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. So if you can't stop it, then there's only one thing you can stop, and that is attachment. Attachment is caused by ignorance. And that ignorance is, this thing that you're holding on to is pleasurable. You see? Seriously, what you really have to do is something that's really simple. You don't have to do a lot. It's very simple. Did you not think that attaining Nibbana was a really hard thing to do? Before you started listening to the sermons? Nibbana, oh God, don't talk to me about Nibbana. When are we ever going to be able to do that? Maybe when Maitri Buddha comes into this world, just maybe, if we are lucky, we'll do it. But attaining Nibbana is not so difficult. What you need to understand to attain Nibbana is not so difficult. It's not difficult, but it's very subtle. It's very subtle. It's like what I usually say, threading a needle. It's very, you look somebody trying to thread a needle, and if they're failing, what do you generally do? What are you going to say? Give it here, will you? Can't you even do that? Come on, give it to me. I'll do it to you. I'll do it for you. And then you try it. And then you realize, although it looks so easy, it's very subtle. You have to have a lot of patience. And you have to have a good view, good eyesight as well. You have to see, you have to know what you're doing. You have to be very careful and very patient. Attaining Nibbana is like that. It's like threading a needle. It's not difficult, but it's very subtle. You can go off-road very easily. There are lots of doctrines which look like Nibbana, but it's not Nibbana. Like fake gold. When there's fake gold, you have to be very careful. For as long as there is no fake gold, then any gold you buy is going to be the genuine stuff. But when there's fake gold, now you have to be very careful. There are lots of teachings out there that are like Nibbana, but not Nibbana. Some people talk about extinguishing the Rupa. Rupa Niruddha. Rupa Nirodha. Vedana Nirodha. Sanya Nirodha. Sankara Nirodha. Vijnana Nirodha. Then a lot of people have come and spoken to me. They talk about their experiences, and half the time I just sit down and listen, and after they've said their piece, I go, oh, good. Good luck. If I were given $1 for every time someone came up to me, not to ask me, but just tell me what they know, they just want someone to listen to them. If I were given $1 for every time someone came, I'd be a millionaire by now. Again. They've gone down a wrong path. And when you've gone a long way down the wrong rabbit hole, it's very difficult to pull them back. Because of, what did we talk about last week? Ego. Because of ego. People seldom like to listen. People like to talk. People like to say what they know. The problem is they've said what they know to everybody that they associate with, none of them understand what it is they're going on about. So they think, surely a Swami Mahasi must understand. So they come to the temple and now they start talking to us. So I just keep nodding my head. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Really good, good, good.